Good evening. Trustees present are Trustee Romero, Trustee Ciro Calderon, Trustee Alvarado, and absent are Trustees Castillo and Trustee Calderon Lorenzo Jr. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Horton, can you lead us in that, please?
Position of Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, comments from the public. The board will take any and all comments from the public related to the sole item on the agenda. We got two. First one's going to be Mr. Vicente Cuevas.
Good evening. I was just thinking one of the things that we need to do in terms of executing the Measure V funds is hire a construction manager. That was recommended on the 2012 audit that was critical of the Calexico Unified School District. We seem to be lax in hiring a construction manager that will work closely with the construction of Measure B funds and report back to the board. I'd like to see that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuevas, and I believe President Calderon had already mentioned that. So, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like to see that happen too. Somebody that just oversees this project. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for somebody for one person to oversee. That's the way that I feel. So hopefully once the five of us, because I don't really like to make decisions with just three of us or four of us are here. When the five of us are here, hopefully we can talk about that, because yes, this is a huge project, and I agree with Mr. Cuevas when he says that.
And I think that was something that all five of us had reiterated a while back, a couple months back, so that's something we'll be looking into. Next, Norma Aguilar.
Good evening, Norma Aguilar, 39 Heber Avenue. I came here out of concern because it's been more than 4 months since we last came. We gave a recommendation, and it was up to the board as to whether to accept it or move forward on it. And my concern is that time is passing and nothing is being done. I don't know what the problem is. I don't think staff has been slow in providing information, so I don't understand the lack of progress on this project. I also want to share that, you just mentioned, Mr. Calderon, that, that there is some consensus about some things. You've only to go to the previous resolutions or discussions that the previous board had in terms of the direction that this money was supposed to be expended. So I don't know if maybe perhaps when we get the conceptual plans presented tonight, and I am kind of disappointed that that not all of you are here, because my understanding these meetings are hearings in a sense, right, to present to the community. Yet we only heard, as Measure B, I only heard about this second one, not the first one.
Yeah.
So I found out about it after the fact, because I periodically check our school's district's page. So in any case, I'm just here to reiterate that we need to move forward on this because our students need it, and let's get going. Thank you.
Yes, and regarding, I'm sorry, Vice President, and regarding all of us not being here, when we had the first one, we couldn't have everybody present, and now today was the only day the three of us could be here. President Calderon cannot be here because of a family emergency that he's been having and for the last week or so. And Mr. Castillo, he's still at the Avid conference. I left early the Avid conference, but the Avid conference doesn't end until 3 p.m. or didn't end until 3 p.m. So I actually asked my principal for permission to leave early so I could be here early because I did want to have the remaining two board members to hear this presentation because we want, like I said, the five of us to be on the same on the same page regarding this. And yes, we voicing President Calderon's wishes, we want to go, we want to do this as soon as possible. But we wanted to hear what is it that we needed to do next. And I guess, like Maria told us on the last board meeting, these are the next steps that we need to follow in order to continue with the process.
Thank you. So now moving on to item C, presentation. C1, present the proposed Measure V bond project, options for Calexico High School.
Yes, trustees, good afternoon, and good evening, trustees and members of the public. What we have tonight is pretty much a lather, rinse, repeat of what we had about a week ago. It's the same presentation, and Mr. Nielsen and Ms. Randall are going to go through it with us. Mr. Sanders couldn't be here tonight because he also had a previous commitment that he couldn't get out of that had been scheduled months in advance. However, he also has we have representatives from his office here as well, so that they'll either advise us and provide input along the way. And so we're going to go ahead and get started.
Can we move maybe these the plans sideways so members of the public can see what would even? I know they're gonna be over there, but they can
Absolutely.
And I just want to show off my Avid shirt for $15. So just so you guys know, they have all sizes. Okay. Oh, you can't see. Do you want to move this way? Do you want to move? Go ahead and sit over here. Yeah.
Are you going to stand over
there?
No, I'll just sit in. I'm just going to do the introduction
okay.
with all.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Testing. Okay. Good evening, trustees. I am just going to present our speaker for tonight, which is Mr. Jeremy Nielsen. And also, I'd like to present from Jimmy Sanders' office. We have here Manny and Jesus, and they're here to support this presentation by answering any technical questions that the board may have. But we will go over this presentation, and Jeremy's going to be our main presenter, and any points that I feel or we feel need elaboration on, I'm here to support Jeremy as well. So I'm going to let Jeremy go ahead and take over.
Thank you, Mai. Thank you, Board, for allowing me to present this. I have an advantage because Mr. Sanders already went through it, so I already got a front runner on some of the questions that were asked. So hopefully I can breeze through these 5 slides as quickly as possible, and we can get a way ahead. A couple of disclaimers. I know that there were some questions that were asked during the first presentation of this, and I just want to put these disclaimers out that $23 million that we have currently in our account will not do everything that we see here. It's not enough to do that. So the idea is that we get the plan or get the direction from the board so that we can move forward and get the plans to DSA, get the DSA approval, and then we can submit it to the state of California for the Pupil Grant or the matching funds so that we can get the rest of the money to complete the entire project.
But as Ms. Randall explained the other day, okay, we cannot ask for that money until we already have not only the plans, but the things are in motion, right?
That's correct.
And just to elaborate even further on that, is that the district, and there's a requirement when you receive funds from the state for the district to have matching funds.
Yes.
Which is what we're gonna leverage the $23 million bond funds as the matching funds.
Yes.
So, but yes, Jeremy is correct in the fact that $23 million will not complete this project in its entirety, which is why we will phase it out.
Thank you, Mike. Also, last board meeting, there was a question, I think, from you, Mr. Calderon, about the timeline for this, and I know Mr. Sanders said 18 months, but I think that's for the approval process, not for the entire project.
Or phase one of the project.
Yeah, or phase one. So timelines will be hammered down once we actually get cost estimates and actual drawings completed and out to bid. I think we'll finally get the final timeline from start to occupancy. So the 18 months isn't for the complete project. That would be more for your DSA approval and going through that process.
But when I asked Mr. Sanders, I said from A to Z, so from beginning to end. So, and he did say from 18 to 24 months.
I
So-
do believe
For
that he
phase one.
misunderstood.
Okay, so for phase one, we said phase one would be
What's phase one consist of?
one building.
one building. Oh, because he's gonna go over, yes, there's 4 buildings, so each building is one phase.
Yeah, so this is going to have to be a phased project, and phased project is just that. You construct one building, and you move students from the relocatables into that building so they can occupy it, so that you can then remove those trailers, those relocatable classrooms, to start construction on the second building. The reason why that's done is if you were to try and remove all the relocatables at one time, you're going to eat up a good chunk of your funds to relocate those trailers. Whether it's, just to house the students, because we're talking about removing 40 portable classrooms, excuse me. And the amount of money that it would take to do that would be substantial, and that's just going to eat away at the amount that we have. So it's best to take this as a phased approach and do it building by building by building.
Did you give a ballpark figure, like what the cost is for each building? What's going to come out to?
We're anticipating that, and again, we won't have hard numbers until we actually go out to bid for this. The Sanders office will give us estimates based on current values of materials and labor and stuff. They'll give us a ballpark estimate on what they believe it to be that it'll cost, but we won't actually know that hard number until we actually go out to bid. Mr. Sanders was estimating that and there's a slide for that, we'll get to that, that with all the money leveraged, we are anticipating that we'll be able to do all 4 buildings, and plus do some modernization in the band room, the cafeteria, and the CTE, and hopefully address a portion of that front. But we gotta watch our funds. We don't want to overspend ourselves here. So obviously we want to maximize our dollar amount and get everything we can out of it. But
And according to what Ms. Randall said, funds can only be used, well, actually what the Measure B says, funds can only be used for student classrooms. It cannot be used for admin classrooms, it cannot be, or admin offices, or anything else. Only for students, right?
Correct. That is how we sold the bond. There would be no administrative buildings, that this was for classroom capacity.
Let me ask you, let me ask you something. Would spending money on a new fence, could that be possible?
well, I believe so, because fencing would be considered security, in my opinion. That because that front fence does need to get fixed. It's leaning. I presented on that years ago. So yeah, I do believe, and especially if we try to, like Mr. Sanders was saying last week, is trying to fix that roundabout area, this area here, to better maximize the flow and parking at the high school, to alleviate that, the parking mess that we have going on. That could be part of that, replacing that fence.
So, okay.
So now disclaimers are out of the way. Here's the current view of the high school. Obviously, you got the circle drive here. You got a row of portable classrooms here, and then back here. This would be the science wing. Here's the band room, the metal and wood shop here, and the building where the CTE kitchen is, and then the cafeteria. So this would be what the proposed campus site could look like if this is the direction the board wants to go in. So we have the 4 buildings here in the back, which would have removed 40 of the trailers, or the portables there, and replaced with this nice landscaped area to go along with the 4 classrooms. Now, this 5th one over here is an option, that if we wanted to remove these trailers these portables, remove these portables as well, then this building here could potentially go here, and then we could reconfigure the layout of these buildings.
And it's important to note that each one of those Lego-looking buildings represents a 2-story facility, a 2-story building. And so just so you're aware.
That is correct. There's a slide for that with an elevation plane of what, not the building we're going to get, but what a building could look like.
How many students would each building
So,
serve?
yeah, let me,
Well, if you look at these classrooms, you have some buildings that have, I'm sorry, you do have it there already, 16 classrooms. 2 of those buildings could hold up to 16 classrooms each, 8 on each floor. One of the buildings would hold 12 classrooms, 6 on each floor, and the largest building would hold up to 20 classrooms, 10 on each floor. So if you were to multiply at about capacity of 30 to 34 per classroom, we're looking at about
64 classrooms.
64 classrooms times 30.
And last question,
Yes, ma'am.
do those buildings include restrooms?
Yes.
He's gonna give a layout of what a building, a normal building would look like.
Yeah, so again, remember, these are just conceptual drawings. These are not the buildings that we'd be getting per se. Those buildings could be spec to our needs and recommendations. Because before these plans get developed, Mr. Sanders' office is going to be conducting interviews and meetings with the staff over at the high school and staff here at the district office to get a general census of what the end user wants in those classrooms. What are the needs that the kids need? So, trying to bring 21st learning into these classrooms, you've got to have those meetings with the end user. You can't build a rectangular room and just expect it to work for everybody. So you got to get that input and that buy-in from the end user.
And with every 2-story building, we're looking at obviously a staircase at opposite ends with an elevator at one particular end for the ADA compliance piece. But I do believe that restrooms would be included in each building.
Out of experience, I would say also, the campus security format will probably, the program will have to change in terms of like, periodically speaking.
And Mr. Sanders did point out last week that there are a couple options as far as ingress and egress of these buildings. This particular one has the staircases and elevator on the ends with a main corridor going down the center of it. There are options of having exterior walkways on either side. So again, depending on what the consensus is.
In reference to the staircases, is it gonna be open to regular use or only for emergency use?
No.
The elevator, or it's gonna be both?
No, the elevator would be for your ADA compliancy and obviously moving furnitures and stuff like that. The stair,
The student wouldn't be.
correct.
Like a little
Yeah.
joyride.
Exactly. Yeah. So you sound like you're speaking from experience.
How many, I'm sorry, I missed that. How many students did we say in each classroom?
Well, at 64 classrooms and at 30 students per classroom, we're looking at about 1,900 student capacity, 1,920.
Okay, because in my experience, having been at the high school for 10 years or more, sometimes we have those AP classes, and AP classes, they can go up to 35, 36, sometimes 40 students. So, I mean, I'm not saying that every class should be like that, but
Yeah.
maybe plan for something. If we're gonna spend money, we might as well get everything that we can.
Yeah, and thank you. That also goes with those interviews and those meetings with the end user to find out, okay, well, what exactly classrooms are we going to be putting in there? Because an art classroom would probably look different than a science classroom, and a science classroom would look different than a history classroom. So, we're going to have to work hand in hand with the site administrator, the teachers, the district office personnel to figure out what classes are going in those buildings. So. Again, here's a breakdown of the monies associated with Measure V. So we got our Measure V funds here, $23 million. New construction grant, $16.8 million. That would be the grant from California, from the state. Modernization grant, 3.4, and that 3.4 is what, combined with the 2.4 for CTE, that's the money we were looking at possibly touching the CTE facilities, the kitchen, the wood shop, the metal shop, and the library and the cafeteria with that portion of the money, which brings the total up to $45.6 million. Again, disclaimer, this is all we have, and that is not going to do this.
So right now in the bank, we do have 23, right, Mike? Okay, but the state doesn't like it when bond money is in the bank.
That is correct. They like for you to spend bond money. You have to be within 6 months, you have to have started the process. You have to have your architect which we have a standing agreement with our architect, but they should be working to move forward to spend the bond funds. Because if you're not moving forward on the process, then what was the point of the bond if you're not going to move forward on the project? And the bonds could be recalled.
Yes.
Absolutely, that's the law. And that's why you have a time period, so you have to have your people, that's right, your folks under contract, and you have to move forward with the project, so yes, you are correct. But yes, we do have $23 million in the bank.
And is that money insured under FDIC?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's restricted funds, where we cannot use it for salaries and for anything that's not related or is not written into how the bond is sold.
Yeah, well,
It's not the bond language.
But when I ask about FDIC, I mean, if something were to happen, for example, another Great Depression and banks went down and all the money went somewhere else, is that money insured in case?
We have, it's in the county treasurer, we have control over that money, and I can guarantee you that if that were happening, I would transfer that into our general fund immediately so that we would have control of our own money, but it's there, I don't anticipate, that, I would make the assumption that it would be okay, and I would also make the assumption that there are some rules and regulations when it comes to banks and those funds being insured.
But we need to spend it. We need to
Yes,
start
but
spending.
as far as the purposes of us not giving the money back, then yes, we need to be moving forward with the process.
Okay.
Is it FDIC like 250 or 500, the insurance on it?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not.
I was saying we're covered by FDIC insurance, but they have a limit on how much they'll cover.
No,
I know that we do have possession, it's in our county coffers, and we do have $23 million.
Mr. Sanders is not here, and you've already said it a couple of times. What would 23 million cover right now? I'm just
Two buildings.
Two buildings.
And we're estimating those 2 buildings to be fully furnished. So that's
explain about the process. Again, you went over the process really quick. So now explain.
So if you go back to,
Yes.
hopefully this could assist a little bit. If we go back to the third slide, the second or third slide, that was probably a good, okay.
No, the other one is better. No. Back.
The one that has
Back.
actual.
That one.
So if we look over here, this is the area currently that houses our
FFA.
FFA pens, our FFA facility. That's not a discussion for us to decide right now in this process, but it's something that we will have to, as a district and as a board, analyze as to whether or not that's going to be a place where we want to continue to house that facility. Primarily because as we go through this process, and depending on where we start our building, the recommendation is that we start the building in the back of the school. Why the back of the school? Well, we want to start in the back of the school because we will have enough property there where we can actually start the construction without displacing students from their classrooms. Currently this is where we're at. We're not going to displace anybody. We build a facility, the first building, and then we go, if the board were to say we want a layout that has a building in the front, then we can remove, for example, the relocatable trailers from the front and start the construction of the second building there. And we will, at that point, move the kids or the students in the classrooms that are in those relocatables to the new building that's already been constructed.
So then what you're saying is, so looking at that map right there, or that layout, is beginning with the bottom right.
Yes, somewhere over here. Either one of these.
One of those two.
Buildings would be the ones that would be over there. One would be here, one would be over there.
If the board chooses to have a,
Should the board choose that. But any layout that the board chooses, that the board selects, would start with one of the buildings being built, a little bit west of the animal pens. There's room there now. Start a building there, and then as we start removing the relocatables to make room for the second classroom building, then at that point we start moving students into the new building. Okay, so the whole purpose is for the district not to have to encumber additional significant expenses, because just to move relocatables is a very pricey endeavor. It's extremely expensive, and it's just going to be a temporary move. We're just going to move, to bring in relocatables from anywhere is expensive, but to even move what we currently have, we can say, well, we'll use our own relocatables. We still have to move them from wherever they're at. So that would be a pricey endeavor, and we need all the money we can get for our construction. So the whole goal would be that we build one building, start housing students in that building, and then remove the relocatables that become empty, and then start the second building in that area, whatever plan the board chooses to go with.
What happens to the modular units?
Well, we will cross that bridge when we get there, I'm sure. They'll be removed.
Either, sold for $1 and or, when, if they're like no good, then they'll be, demolished or. Yeah.
Or if they're currently being leased, which I'm not 100% sure which one of those are being leased at this time, but those would be
Or
terminated and,
lease return.
right.
or they can become district office buildings.
Yes, they could.
Yes. No, I'm not kidding. Yes, if they're good.
We just have to pay for them to be moved over.
If they're ours, if we are leasing them, no, if we're leasing them, we give them back.
And then, the last time I looked at, we tried to get a trailer moved from William Moreno, and they wanted to charge us $250,000
Yes.
to move one trailer. That's just how it's been, and then no one would come. Beside that one company, we put it out to bid for moving, and no one would even come, except for that one guy that wanted to charge us like $250,000 to move one trailer. So it's a very expensive process.
How much to move a trailer?
For one trailer, $250,000.
Just to move it.
Just to move it.
Yes. And if we sell it like we did to, can I say who we sold it?
Yeah.
To a neighborhood house?
Yeah. It's only $1.
They have to incur the cost of moving and everything else. So, yes.
That is their
Yes, it looks like a brand new office or space they have over there. Couldn't believe when I saw it. So So yeah, so this is what we went through at the last special board meeting. Mr. Sanders explained to us all these options, and my question was again time to completion. So
And we can confirm that with Mr. Sanders, because I know that this will more than likely be a voting or on the agenda for the August 10th meeting, on the regular meeting, and we can make sure that we have that, something more concrete or an understanding of what the timeframe is for plans, and all that stuff, and then to completion of the first and or second building with our current budget that we have. We'll confirm that with Mr. Sanders.
And if I might interject, Mr. Calderon, you're aware of that timelines is an approximation, because as we knew from the pool, they told us, we're shooting for this, or we're gonna aim for a shorter deadline. So, anything that we get is approximate,
yes,
and it's contingent upon prevailing wages, and there's all kinds of, but I think really we need to move forward, because this is what our district and our students need.
no,
Oh,
but
we
yes,
definitely need to move forward, and that's one of the things that the last board, and I commend you on that. When you guys actually voted for a project manager, I was actually sitting in the audience when you guys did vote for one. It's been brought up numerous times, and that's something that we need to, push forward to make sure that we get that, done.
Yeah,
so maybe it needs to be for in the next
One more thing
agenda.
that I was just looking at, have we seen or even like thought about, there's a student parking lot there, and there's another parking lot for the football field in the back. Have we thought about even like doing buildings there in that area, in that front area where the grass area is at? Moving the student parking over to the back where the football field is at, and leaving that other space in the top. Have we even thought about doing that?
I could probably answer some of those.
I'm just looking at it right now, cause have that going, and I'm just seeing what would be the best outcome, most bang for our buck, where we could actually have everything done, pretty much two to three buildings there in that space compared to in the back where we have to move everything, wait, and that's just gonna prolong it. It's gonna cost us more money for that. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
What do you mean?
I don't think a phased project is going to cost us any more money. It could potentially prolong it. I don't think by years, but maybe months. We were looking. We did a lot of looking at our campuses and listening to a lot of the complaints that we received from students and staff. Parking is an issue. Field space is an issue. Because we got no-name field sitting over there. However, there's a lot of groups that use that.
And the reason why I brought that parking of the students was, I don't know if in the morning you see how congested it is.
Oh, yeah.
If you remove the student parking over to the side, that would relieve some of that congestion in the morning in the front.
Well, if once we
And
finish,
that's what I'm saying, what I'm looking at is that in that space where the student parking is at, that field next to it, that no-name field, you could actually get a couple of buildings in there. And you could actually construct, 2 to 3 of those buildings there.
Yeah, the superintendent and a couple of us, we've had conversations about,
bottom
doing a
left.
parking lot.
Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Bottom left.
Right
No,
here.
the no-name field. Yes. I was thinking the football parking lot. I was thinking about that. So I was thinking of you. I thought you were talking about the football field parking.
The student parking lot, we move them over there while we get all that,
So-
situated.
Okay, so number one, that no-name field, is that ours?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't know if that's-
Absolutely ours.
Okay.
And
Could that be, because that parking lot gets completely full, and I know our little ones, they practice there
And
all
not
the
not
time.
not
So
only
do our
that,
big
but,
ones.
The football players practice there. The soccer player practice there.
The band
The
practices
band
there.
practices there. It's very appealing to everybody because it has lights. If we eliminate that, which I've said in the past, it would make a great parking lot. It really would. But if we don't put lights at, let's say, Dianza to accommodate those practices and to give our actual play field a break and the rest that it needs, if we start holding practices and everything on our Ward field, it's going to be bad. It's going to go. We saw how much the baseball field was getting used during the construction of Ward Field, and it killed the grass. I mean, there was a Williams complaint about
Well,
it.
I totally understand. I'm just trying to see where we could, for the construction part of it.
Well, maybe your office can take notes about how to best implement usage of the no-name field.
And this is precisely what we've wanted all along, is to have this discussion with the board and as a community as to how to best develop the high school. We know that we need at least 4 buildings. We know that we need the 60-plus classrooms. Where they get situated is not, the fact that they've been drawn at a certain area on the campus doesn't mean that that's where they're locked into. This is just a conceptual plan or map, if you will, but that is why we're having this, why these discussions are so important, so that when we do get into the permanent, what is it going to be, we can say, you know what, we want 2 here or 2 there. We could say we'll take over what's the current student parking lot. If we can relocate that particular parking lot either to No-Name Field or to back here, there's different ways to reconfigure. But this is why these discussions are so important.
Aguilar hit a good point earlier about security. If you see where the buildings are situated right now, they're real far away from where everything else is at.
Ambulance access?
And that's why I was just looking at it right now. It doesn't make sense to me to have them way back there when there's plenty of space in the front area. That's something that we should have been looked at. There's those basketball courts that are behind the high school gym also as well that I'm seeing right now. That, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of other places that we could actually see it, and that's something that, I mean, Sanders is, you guys are here, so that's why I was just saying you guys could have.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, we can look at those, there's options, and that's the point.
I don't know how the Measure B committee feels about that. You guys have been putting all these hours into it. I mean, you guys should have a lot of input into this.
I think in reference to the resolution that we gave you was
Yeah, correct.
to facilitate the movement to get something done.
Yeah.
And we didn't want, I think we're limited to what we can say to be done.
Actually, the community, I'm sorry to disagree with you, Mr. Horton, but this is money that you, as a taxpayer of Calexico, are given to the district. So no, you have 100% the right to come and give your input in this.
I mean, I was just, right now, when Ms. Aguilar said that, that's the reason why I was just looking at the whole layout, and I was just like, first of all, it is, a little bit further than where it normally is, but if you were to situate a couple buildings up front, it's pretty much, you have everything centered in that one area of the school.
Yeah, I brought it up before about the no-name field being used, and I still feel that you could use the no-name field and build a building there and house students, classrooms. And it would be convenient because it's right next to Encinas, and it's easy access and everything.
You would displace
The little ones.
the little ones, you're gonna displace the band, you're gonna displace, and where do they go in order to do what they wanna do?
Just to reiterate,
Isn't there a field right next to the baseball field also as well?
That's a
in that
softball
area?
field.
that's a softball field there.
No, up on top where those buildings are at.
No,
No, there's no
Like
field.
that's where the farm is right now. Oh, they have like a little exercise area
Yeah.
right there in between.
Where that building's at right now, Jeremy, isn't
Yeah, they have like a little exercise
We have
area.
an obstacle course there.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, there's an obstacle course
Yes.
right here.
Talking about this area right here.
No, right now there's the fence for the baseball field, and then we have the obstacle course, and then those classrooms. Yeah, we don't have that.
And how much use are you getting from that little course there?
Honestly, I don't know.
Now,
You don't wanna displace people that are using it.
No, I understand that. I understand. It's more
now,
like-
but you know what? Looking at it from a medic point of view, if from a medic, from the EMS, from
Emergency.
emergency. Yes, medic. In the military, we call it medics. You should know that. How? I mean, although those buildings are right by the fence, there's no easy access for an ambulance to get there.
We discussed that as well.
Yeah, well, Ms. Zabriskie.
If that, again, this is why the conversations are important, but where the lights are at, if we were to situate 2 to 3 of the classrooms back in that area, we would find a way to do, because that, it would actually restructure how the district is laid out, and we could even remove some of the old trailers that are behind at the rear of the warehouse that are really old, they look like old army type trailers, right? That are used as storage. The talk is to get rid of those completely so that we can create a thoroughfare that will be identified to our local emergency departments such as the police and fire, so that in the event that there's ever an emergency, if there's buildings in the rear, that if there's an emergency call to a classroom that is near that, because that was my major concern, how do we get people there, is that they're, instead of telling them come through the front, come through Andrade and we are going to get you in through the back entrance. And we're going to create the entrance that, should that be the way the board decides to go, that there is an identified and clear entrance for emergency personnel, so that there's more than one way to get into the campus for emergency personnel.
Okay.
And that they would access it from Andrade back here near the Vega warehouse.
Through the,
Yes,
through
sir.
the entrance.
I recall that there's a little parkway along 98.
Yes.
Parkway.
Is that ours or is that the city
That
or
is
is that a
not-
state
that is not
highway?
ours.
That's the question, Mr. Calderon.
Well, I'm,
Is it ours?
I'm asking. I'm asking.
I'm thinking in the same vein.
Yes.
That used to be the cities, but I think the school district took it over, right?
No,
It's still the cities?
it is not. I'm under the belief it is not ours.
That grassway between
I
the
thought it was the school districts.
That's what it looks like. That's city folks that maintain it. They're out there with their.
That's right. I recall that that's a good area that, I don't know if the city is,
I think that would.
will they sell it?
Well, I think then you had to get Caltrans involved in order to put a.
Yeah.
Right-of-way access on 98.
Correct.
At one point, there was no curb, there was nothing, it was just, there's just open.
When Pop Warner has their games on Saturdays, I know they use a regular high school field, but I know before when my kids used to play, they used to play in a field right next to the baseball field. Where's that field situated at?
This one right here?
No.
On
It's
top?
up on top of where the baseball fields. There's a field that they use, the Pop Warner does. I don't know if it's still being used or if that got done away with.
Yeah, currently, if you were to go back there right now, it's aside from the obstacle course for the law enforcement CPE, it's a dirt lot.
Oh, okay.
And the animal pen, that's all it is.
Now, I don't see, now, if once the whole, I mean, if we were to go with this layout, for students to park all the way on this side and walk all the way to the other side, they will have to park in the parking lot. Because I don't see a way that they could park at the football field. Are we thinking about that too, or, because that would ease up actually traffic on Encinas.
I believe that would be a discussion that we would need to have with Ms. Williams, because she's in charge of the proctors over there and stuff. I know we've talked about it loosely with her, and she tells me she doesn't have the manpower.
Well, leave that up to us. Leave that up to us. So because we need whatever is best for the students. So it will make it happen if we come to an agreement. But at this point, again, in the morning, if you've been there 5 till 8, it's chaos. It's chaos. And if we open up that parking lot, the football field parking lot, although yes, maybe we need a couple more bodies, but it will ease up a lot of the traffic on this side, because those 4 buildings, they will house how many students did we say? 1,900 students. That's a lot of cars that don't have to park on this side.
Yeah, I agree, and in fact, that parking lot is open in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
Just mention something, that we need to do stuff that's beneficial to the students. What's more beneficial to the students? Buildings or parking lots?
Buildings.
Buildings.
No, but what I'm saying,
So, let me finish. So, there's limited amount of parking spots. Do it by raffle or by lot, and then, you know, every student has the chance to put in for a parking spot, access, and and that's it, then the spots are gone, then there's nobody else can come in. and-
No,
and-
How's it being done now for students parking there? Anybody could just,
Come in?
For the student access to the parking lot, they're supposed to come to the campus, they're supposed to request a parking permit, and that's,
but I'm asking, is that being done now? Because from my understanding, there's been numerous cases where actually people just driving up there and just parking there.
Mhm.
That we're actually following, and actually parking the high school, and nothing ever gets,
And they're not students.
and they're not students at all.
Yeah, as far as I know, student parking is elected.
And I know before, Ms. Aguilar, I don't know if,
Yeah.
you were here, Proctor, before, how was it handled before? You
First
know,
come, first served.
what, right, but it was actually, you would have to have a ticket to actually park in there, correct? It was something that was.
the decal, yes.
you have to have a permit.
Involves security.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think that we need to start going back to because, that's beside the
And
point,
then
but,
also, you also have parents that come in.
correct?
See, that's the next point that I wanted to bring up.
So, I'm sorry, part of, if you look at this conceptual map over on this side, part of that one right there would be reconfiguring what is currently Circle Drive. And so it would basically call for taking out that grassy area within that circle,
In the middle.
within that half circle, and create what Jimmy referred to as like the 20-minute parking area for parents who are coming in to drop off, or
Yes.
visitor parking right there, so that they would stay out of the student parking lot. And moving the student parking lot out of Calexico High School's front and putting classrooms there would actually be a very good area, because that would definitely keep cars out of that area
Where?
and send them to the football
Front, just
area.
talking about the front.
You know, you can send the student parking lot back to the area. Because one of the things, although it's always wonderful to say that we offer a student parking area, well, that's really not a requirement of any school to
No,
offer
no,
a student
that-
parking
see,
area.
you missed my point. My point is, we already have a parking lot. What I don't see right in the football field, what I don't see is a way to go from the parking lot all the way to the new classrooms. But I don't see it right there.
From where are you talking about?
There's
You-
a connection. I don't.
There's a,
Right there.
yeah, right there, right where Jimmy,
Well, no, I see that right there, but I don't. And I see it right all the way to the girls' softball field.
It's
but I-
between the girls softball field and the boys
Baseball
baseball
Okay.
field.
there's actual.
No, I
walking-
see it now, but I go down. I don't. Okay, right there.
That's it right there.
Okay, right there. Okay, well, I know it's a dirt path. I know that, but I don't see it drawn right there. I don't see it drawn right there. I don't see it drawn. I know it's there.
Again, that wasn't, again, the idea isn't to get this thing approved today.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make sure that we're on the right track, that you guys, that everybody's in agreement with what we're doing here, trying to increase the capacity of the
Yeah,
high school.
Yeah.
And then once that happens, then Sanders' office will then give us options.
No. Well, they need to be taking notes because what all of us are saying right here. Okay. Yes. Yes. Video. Yeah.
The other thing that
It's on video.
I don't know if you want to consider it is, your attendance office is on the other side of the campus. I don't know if you would want to have like a satellite attendance, or how, you know, if somebody comes in late, then have to, you know what I mean? Set up a table over there, have somebody check the messages.
Where at, Ms.
Well,
Aguilar?
I'm just saying, you know, like, if you got, obviously, it's not gonna happen until a couple years down the
Yeah,
line.
correct.
Because, you're phasing it in. But when you're at optimal, you're, like you said, you're gonna have about 1,600 students over there. And so say, the ones that are going to those classrooms in the morning at that time, you're going to have sweeps, you're gonna have people, so then, I
Correct.
guess with the growth of the students over there, you might have.
Well, if we relocated the FFA farm right there, we could put a trailer, although it costs a lot of money, because the way that I see it is all the admin are all the way in the front, and there's nothing in the back.
But if that opens up, move the end zone.
So a trailer like for the proctors, for maybe offices.
And then M&O could go over there.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
And FFA could go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a very good point. You always open yourself up to security issues when you have more than one
Yeah.
point of entry.
I mean, I really like this plan because I was just talking to Ms. Ambris about it right now. If you do all these classes, how it shows on there, you can actually have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th on the campus.
Yeah.
That opens up Dianza. That means that Camarena could actually go to Dianza. Now you have buildings over there which could house M&O, could house, I mean, who knows?
FFA.
District Office, all that stuff could be over there. And
You know
Yeah.
what those trailers at? As John pointed out, you've got M&O
yeah.
with trailers full of stuff.
Yep.
It could be
So, I
an,
mean, there's-
it could be
I
an
mean, I
additional.
like the plan so far as the buildings go. I mean, I'm all for it. And I reiterate that to you. I mean, I think it's awesome. It's just looking at where it's gonna be at, where you don't like it.
No, and that's why the
But I like the
conversations are
buildings,
important,
yeah.
you know.
I like the buildings and stuff like that. I mean, that looks awesome.
And shouldn't the buildings be over there where that row of trailers are near the faculty parking lot?
There's one there.
Potentially one there.
Potentially one there?
Yeah, like this one could be moved over there, and you could have 3 there, or you could do 1
You
there.
can even have one where are the basketball courts being used?
That fit to the front.
I
They are?
think,
Yeah.
Well, we could fit two.
You could fit, if you pushed it down to where the potential parking lot would be, where the circular is, you could put out there, possibly, or up to the parking lot that's up above. But 2 side by side there, no.
No.
Can you go 4 levels?
You could, sure.
Okay.
Budget, yeah.
The no-name field, people use it. The little ones use it because they don't really have to go all the way inside into the high school. So the parking lot is available, so parents just go and, well, everybody just goes and practices there. But if we put 2 of those buildings in the back, one in the front on the top side, and then another one on the no-name field, that leaves half of the space in the back.
You could actually put 2 in a moment. You could put 3.
But it would leave a lot of space in the back, which we could open up.
You could put all three right there. The other one over there, that would be 4. That solves it. I mean, how I'm seeing it, that solves all. You have
So-
everything in front.
What I would suggest is, obviously, these are good conversations. What I would suggest is that we keep the discussions going, that we keep our calendars open for additional facilities meetings, but we do need, at our next board meeting, this item will be on there so that to accept the board's direction at, yes, we want 4 classrooms, and let's find the best places where these could be. Now, I'll give you some input on no name. No name field is currently used by, like we said, our football team, our different sports teams, our band, but it's also used by our community for example, Pop Warner. However, the reality is that if we need that space for classroom, we may need to make a difficult decision of saying, we'll put 2 or 3 classroom buildings there because it'll allow us to keep our schools safe or safer. And it may require us to do an additional investment eventually on the 9th grade campus to use their 9th grade field for these purposes. But we shouldn't, for example, hold up progress because of community, even though I highly respect and regard Pop Warner. I was a Pop Warner board member at one time. We're looking for the education of our students and the safety of our students and our staff. And so it's very important that we maximize on our current real estate, which is here. We will have probably issues even with no name this fall with our diminishing facilities. Everybody wants to use that field, and there's not enough field to go around. You know, before that field was almost double the size. But now that we have the Margarita de Necochea Bulldog Aquatic Center that has cut into part of that field, that field is not as large as it used to be. So as it is, you may have community groups coming to you as a board in a few weeks saying, you know what, the district didn't allow us to use the field. Well, if we didn't allow them to use the field, it's probably because our school organizations are using the field during the times that they wish to use the field. So it's going to become a tight situation, but we are making and we're encouraging the board to make the best decisions in the best interest of the district as a whole and of the high school. When these classrooms are completed, we will be able to house Calexico High School under one roof. That is the beauty of it all. We will be able to house 9th through 12th. If that happens, then we will now have the open facility, which is the 9th grade campus. Well, that will actually help us with, if it becomes an empty building, it won't be empty for very long, because that could then become the permanent facility that Enrique Camarena deserves and needs, with sidewalks, with its gymnasium, with its cafeteria, with its library. It's a brick and mortar school. And then that would leave the current Enrique Camarena facility open, but I don't think that that would be empty very long either. It could either A, become a temporary, and I use the word temporary, become a temporary elementary school, because we are at a position where our district elementary capacity is bulging, okay? Or it could become the warehouse area, it could become the district office area, and then we would give this over to, the high school, or, part of the school. And it could become part, or it could also house, in addition to everything else, it could also house the farm area. So there are so many possibilities, but I don't want us to get caught up or hung up on, this is the presentation, the conceptual plan. This is just to give us, to start this very needed conversation. And so once we see it, it's easier to say, okay, you know what? 4 in the back, well, maybe 2 in the back and 2 in the front, or 3 in the front and 1 in the back. That's what this is about. It's
How many
getting that going.
buildings can we fit in the no-name field?
Looks like 2 plus another one in the parking lot, looks like 3.
2, I think it would be 2.
2.
Maybe.
I would say 1.
Okay.
And
One?
although it seems that you can fit 2, once you start laying out walkways, circulation.
Even that's, but I'm saying, including even the parking lot,
ADA access.
including even the parking lot also as well?
Oh, into the parking lot?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Oh,
talking about the
that's
parking
true.
lot and no-name field.
If you include the existing student parking.
Yes.
Part of,
I'm just looking,
But
I'm looking at the,
then you need to add up the parking, so you're wasting more probably on reconfiguring that whole area than just fixing it on the back.
actually, it wouldn't be a waste of parking lot, because that parking lot in the back where the football field's at, I'm just seeing it. We could use that for student parking. The reason why I'm also bringing that up is the cafeteria needs a lot of work. And especially if we put buildings over there, students walking from that last building, I'm just seeing it right now, calculating it to where it's at, it's already like about 10 minutes.
No.
I don't know how long the lunches are, but, that's another thing we have to take into consideration. Another thing, you brought up CTE. If you redo the cafeteria, you could actually hold probably culinary in there if it's big enough, and, open that up. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. It's just, everybody needs to work together and get the, ball rolling already, because it's just, but I'm in agreement with this.
As you mentioned, CTE, Trustee Alvarado, that would be these 2 buildings right here.
Okay.
Okay, and so this is where we have our welding shop, if I'm not mistaken, and this is where we have the culinary arts program housed. So the one good thing for CTE is the additional CTE dollars at the state level, but also we've received, by way of the IID, an additional $675,000. And so that's going to help for the culinary program building and et cetera. So what we're going to do is that when we start whatever the reconstruction is here, we're actually going to also concentrate on modernizing these buildings with the CTE dollars that are available from the state and any monies that are coming in from the IID grant.
Correct.
So those two buildings are going to receive attention as well. And so, I mean, it's exciting times for Calexico. It's just a matter of we need to get started in that direction.
You know, and since we're talking about it, also right there, the girls softball field, and I'm just thinking out loud, the girls softball field right there, we could move it out, and we could move it to the back and put another one of those buildings in the girls softball field right there, and that will be super close to the parking lot. So, again, if we're talking about parking for the students, well,
Possibilities all over.
yeah, we have, as long as we don't have to disturb regular classes while this is being done. That's the whole idea.
I'm thinking getting the most classes done at once, that way we don't have to be.
So, at our next board meeting, which is next week, regular board meeting on the 10th, we have an item on the agenda that will call for the board's decision or approval to allow us to go in the direction of 4 buildings, which house up to 64 classrooms, and then which will in turn allow us to start having these very, very rich conversation about where the facilities will be placed, what areas will be remodeled, if you will, or reconfigured. That's the word, reconfigured. And so if not all 4 would go in the back, if only 1 goes in the back, 2 in the front, 1 on the side, whatever it happens to be, that will come in the next few facilities meetings that we have. And so, as you can see, this takes a lot of thought, a lot of time, and that's why these meetings are pulled into special meetings so that they don't get lost in the conversations that take place in regular board meetings, because there's so many items to take care of at every board meeting. This is one major agenda topic for this district that will be a major agenda topic for this district for years to come. And so we need to just, keep it on the forefront and just go forward.
Yeah, 'cause all that looks nice, all the beautification in between looks nice, but I think that should be in the front of the school, that way all that,
Absolutely.
that's where I'm seeing it, because, that's gonna last an impression.
Yeah, but
Trustee
also,
Romero.
They're in the back, it doesn't disrupt the other existing classrooms, which I like. But also, going through Andrade for emergency, can we put some parking structures there? I mean, parking lots there? Would there be room for that?
We probably could put one between what is the district office and the current
Right.
Vega facility. Yeah, I'm sure that we could
I mean,
have
that's
that
another
place.
possibility. That way they could, the kids could park there.
So there's a lot of possibility, absolutely.
Yeah. But maybe it doesn't disrupt the other, during construction, the other classrooms,
That's the idea.
which to me is important.
Yeah, if we
A
started
lot to think about.
at the no-name field,
Yeah, if you start, they're not gonna disrupt nothing.
that they wouldn't
You look into the
disrupt
parking lot
anything.
Stuff that you won't
Yes.
disrupt anything.
No, but you can only put 2 there.
But we can only start with 2.
Yeah, but, well, you're gonna, start with 2, but then eventually you go to the back. But another question, what are you gonna do with the FFA? Where are you gonna move them to if you start there?
That's another
I mean,
thing
that's an
that we
important
will
question.
that we will talk about as these meetings go forth. One of the things that, again, it's very difficult because FFA is a very strong program in our district.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we do have to think about is that in the movement of facilities, is that it could be moved to an alternative place. It could be moved to where the current Enrique Camarena site is at once it's all figured. But that's obviously a couple years down the line. The other thing is that we are one of only 2 districts in the valley that houses FFA on campus. Other districts,
That was my next question.
other districts house them on local farms near the school, but not on the campus. So those are conversations that the board would have to consider in the future as well.
Go out and do
Absolutely.
rounds and all that.
So or leave them there, and how do we work with that while they're there?
That needs to be addressed.
So,
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
The property to the south of Willie Moreno, isn't that ours too?
That's that rectangle. That's right.
Mhm.
And they have space to roam all around. That's true.
And that will become an issue as well that we would have to bring the community into, because they will ask.
Why do I have to have animals near?
Exactly. They're already used to what we currently have here. So again, it's just where these buildings are placed, and whether or not that will impact the FFA program. And if it does impact the FFA program, as Trustee Romero said, well, where do we place them? And because we don't want to hurt the program either. It's a very successful program for
We need to
Calexico.
get their input.
Yes.
Can we build a farm? Oh no, I'm not kidding. Can we? It's for
I'm sure we
students.
can,
It's
but
for-
not with our $23 million. I'm sorry, no. Not with the $23 million. Because before I build or rebuild the farm, we've got to make sure that we've got classrooms. Because that is what we promised.
Well, I'm not talking about a huge farm, but I'm talking about something nice where concrete slabs and things like that.
And again, as soon as we get the 64 classrooms, and if we've got any money left over, we can, because remember, we then have to start with our middle schools, and then we have to start with our elementary schools. And then if there's anything, we can work with our farm.
Or maybe work with local farmers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Build a barn. Well, in the old days, they would house the animals on C and Perry, and that was part of the county. But they did grow crops up where M&O is right now. And the whole premise of moving the high school to 55 at this location was that the Preston Ranch had sold the property to the Mexico School District. I think there was an agreement that there would be an FFA program on the site.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, depending on how big you want that FFA program.
No, I don't want to get rid of it. If anything, I want to make it better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That will be the idea, to make it better and more accessible for students, and have a nice place where the students can actually take their animals out, and so they can run and do all those things.
And so that whole
Yeah.
area where M&O was, coming back to the band building, was all FFA crops.
Oh,
And I remember that, and then during football season, they make us do bird crawls there, to till the soil, and then plant in the spring. They grew the crops. They had a tractor. Remember that? Yes, everything.
well, we can talk about it when the time comes. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So maybe at the next board meeting, when we talk about this, maybe have,
So I'm not sure if they'll be able to have drawings by the next board meeting.
No, no, no.
which is
It's in a
next
week,
Thursday.
yeah.
They probably will not have those renderings or drawings, but I know that Manny and Jesus have taken copious notes of the conversation that has happened today, and we'll be able to present at future meetings some other options, whether it be buildings in the front, using the football in the parking lot, or those things. It's just a matter of for this next board meeting that we are going in the right direction as far as the two-story building, so that then Sanders can start moving forward with presenting maybe one or two additional options with two buildings in the front. It could be one, this conversation that has happened today, and then the board can then discuss what we're gonna do with FFA and all of those things, so that then we can come up with a final rendering along with the community input, and even with FFA, I mean, you're gonna have these beautiful buildings in the back, and then a modernized FFA thing. So there's a lot of things to consider as a part of this process and project. So we just want to make sure before we have the architects put together a plan that we actually want 4 buildings in the back, 3 buildings in the back, 2 in the back type of thing. So so at the next meeting, that's kind of what we're looking for. So then we can bring those options at either a future special board meeting, and as we continue, so we can get this ball.
So, well, yeah, so now the 5 of us have seen the plans and more or less have an idea what is it that we want. So now when the 5 of us get together again at the next board meeting, we can all come to an agreement. Yes.
That is correct.
Yes.
What,
Is there any deadlines that we're looking at here? Deadlines that we have to direct to the state, the money that they talked about, if we don't use it, you said it.
Well, I think we
that's
should
the
start
bond
moving on
funds.
this quick.
Yes.
And as far as the state funds go, we preach this, the get in line factor. In order to get in line with the state of California, you have to have DSA approved plans. Well, until you have a DSA approved plan, you cannot get in line.
When
So
is-
that's when,
When is Measure V meeting again? Your guys'
We're gonna meet when.
we don't have anything to meet on at this
Well,
time.
hopefully the
because
10th, we'll have a decision by the 10th. I'm pretty sure it'll go through. And then you guys will have your next meeting. Hopefully we can start.
Well, let's say, right now, I'm sure they're pressing to get the school opened up. After the school is over, they will have a
We'll
meeting.
probably have our first meeting either in September or October.
Yeah, so you-
As far as we go, we've done everything the committee, we've done everything as a committee that we can do at this point because we don't have the expenditures to review. It's because we
okay.
haven't really moved forward with anything. So, once, we start moving along, as far as them coming and giving their input, they're always welcome to do that at the board meetings or at the special board meetings, they're certainly welcome to do
Here
that.
next week.
the Measure B committee, their overall purpose is to provide oversight for the expenditures. However, they have been such an integral part of the process. I mean, we want and continue to welcome their input. So for August the 10th, which is next Thursday, we will be asking the board to let us know that this is the direction that we're going
We
in.
want to start.
64 classrooms and get going so that we can provide Sanders Inc. the direction to start giving us the options 1, 2, and 3. We'll start meeting with Measure V as well so that they can continue to provide us some, again, even though their overall role is oversight of the spending, it is also they are an integral part of the plan.
Mine, how much was it to move each trailer again?
Well, that one guy was 250 grand, but again,
I'm just,
all relative, since we're gonna actually be eventually moving 64, we'll bid it out. But that one particular person, company, for that one trailer was like 200.
because there's 32 trailers back there, right?
Right.
And that's
So-
gonna be a pretty pain, so that's why I wanna find out exactly how much that's gonna be, because
And Mr. Sanders will estimate all of that.
that's what we need to look at. That's the reason why I was talking about the rolling field and the other one, because that's what we have to think about, because if that's gonna be, to me, I'd rather use that money for the cafeteria and other stuff, than, than move all those,
Oh.
because that's gonna cost, a whole lot of money also as well to move, so that's why I'm just trying to think ahead.
No, we start wherever there's nothing, so that way we don't have to worry
Correct.
about that. And
That's
then
what I'm doing.
when it comes to the trailers, if we don't need to move, if we don't have to spend money in moving them, and we can just sell them for $1, and whoever buys them, they can
They
come
can
in,
move them, yep.
and they can come, and that was the deal. They come and move them themselves, and we don't spend that money.
And that money that's there, we could actually
Yeah.
invest it to do some type of field or something like that
Yeah.
on the side, and that way,
Yeah.
And that's something that Sanders will then propose to, if we have the real estate, to leave the trailers, put the buildings elsewhere, and then still provide the parking that I'm hearing and all of those
Yeah.
things. So those will be the options that Sanders will have to, see.
Yeah, I'd like the P's input also as well for those basketball courts also as well there too, because that's another area right there that,
I wanna get in line.
Yeah, for the matching.
The last time I talked to Mr. Sanders, he was receptive for the idea of the no-name field. I mentioned to him that would be a good site. And, he was
I'm just curious how many buildings we could get in that, the parking lot and all that. That's something that I would really like to see. Because if we do 2 right there, that's another one up there, that's 3 already there. And if you could just do 1 in the back, that'd be like,
Or one in the softball field. The softball field.
or right with the basketball court where the basketball court's at. So I don't even what
But
I'm
are the
saying?
basketball courts used?
Yes, they are.
I mean, so how can we limit the facilities
Yeah, they are.
that
I-
are usable?
I passed by and I seen a couple of them, not all of them.
Well,
I-
I used to play in the
I would
basketball.
definitely, just as the superintendent, I would definitely advise against using our basketball courts because they are used during the day by our PE department rather heavily. I would advise
Well,
using.
not all of them, though, Maria, just at least, if
Yeah.
we could, half of it, I'd do half of it.
Yeah, I would advise against using the softball field
So would I.
because
If you see half of
No,
the
but
basketball
we
court,
can move the softball field, if we're only gonna do one building here, we can move this field over here, that's my thing.
Are we putting lights into these fields?
yes,
The
again,
baseball field.
I would advise against using our current softball field. It's already a facility that is there. It's already a facility that is easily accessible from the parking lot for our visitors. The reason why I would advise against the softball field because that is where our JV teams play. So again,
could we see?
athletics is a great part of our program, and we don't want to hinder that in any way. Once we know what's left, we know where the buildings are going to go, and if there's a lot of space left over, maybe we can further develop the area beyond the baseball field to do additional things. But I would just not touch our current athletic
I
facilities.
concur 100%.
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say something real quick. At the far east end of the tennis courts, there's that handball court there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could potentially do something with this dirt parking lot, you could potentially get rid of that handball court and eat into some of that parking there and do this parking lot over here for additional parking. Parking's prime real estate here, obviously, so we don't want to eat up too much of that Ward Field parking lot, but we also have that great dirt lot right over here that would make a wonderful parking lot, which gets used anyway, but it'd be nice.
Could you
if
come
it's a
up-
legitimate parking lot?
Can you come up with some type of plan, just to see if one building fits, if not there, just leave it out? I would like to see that. I'm not saying take out all the basketball courts there, but if at least, if we could put half of it, that's something that, we look into.
We've got an Olympic-sized swimming pool, use it. Get a water polo
Yeah?
team started.
Well, we need to use all the facilities here. We got a new gymnasium also as well, that needs to be also used also as well. We got a football field new, they gotta use that also as well, because it's not, track field, I've passed by and so I'm just thinking ahead, I'm just trying to, get the most bang for our buck, and to me, it makes more sense to cut a little bit here and there, get more bang for our buck, and put it where our students need it at. And the cafeteria, our students really need a new cafeteria. And that's what I wanna see, and if it's gonna save me $3-4 million not to move the trailers and invest it into a cafeteria, I'd rather use that. So that's why please, if you could do that, and if not, can you please come back to me and specify why it wasn't gonna fit there or whatever? I just wanna know what it was. 'Cause I really think that we could actually do this without, doing that other stuff around, and focus more on the front area of the school, because that's where it's gonna make lasting impression. Please. With that, any other questions, any other concerns, comments from the public? All right, ask for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by
I'll second.
Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Calderon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Being adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
Thank you.